If you're thinking about coaching and have zero online presence like I did, then how do you secure your first clients? Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. I had worked in marketing, communications, branding for over a decade when I first decided that I wanted to move into coaching. Despite having managed teams and having worked really closely with CEOs and presidents of boards most of my career, I had never actually formally coached anyone in a personal capacity outside of my management roles. So when I was first starting in coaching, I was completely starting from scratch. So I want to share the step-by-step approach that I took to be able to secure my first clients. Number one was to start as a student. So despite having 10 years of experience in marketing, communications, even personal branding at that time, I really needed to know what the industry was already offering. I needed to get a sense of everything that was already out there so that I could have a unique value proposition in the marketplace. And to be able to do that, I needed to endlessly consume what was available. So I didn't just do a quick search of websites and see what other people were promoting. I fully engaged with as much content and as much research as I could. So this included reading every book on personal branding that I could find, whether I thought it was a good one, whether I thought it seemed average, whether I thought it was brilliant. I read every single one that I could find so I could gain a bigger perspective on the topic, and I could compare different ideas. I could see which ones resonated with me, I could see which ones didn't, and where I could see in a unique way in the marketplace. And beyond that as well, I also watched every YouTube video I could find. I listened to every podcast. And I wasn't simply just listening to the more recent podcasts or the latest episodes. I was actually delving deep into the history of specifically personal branding and how this had evolved over time so that I could start to bring that perspective to my coaching as well, to understand where the industry had been and where I predict that it was going in the future and what the latest trends were as well in that space. But it's also really important to make sure that you are setting yourself a deadline. So while I've never stopped learning in the personal branding space, you want to make sure that if you are committing to learning before you're taking action on your coaching, that you do this within a particular time frame. So I did a lot of that in a much more condensed period of time, and then I continued to learn as I progressed through my coaching. But the next step that I took, number two, was to design a coaching program. Coaching can sometimes be, I find, one of those things that can potentially be a little bit vague. It's sometimes something that people don't know quite what they're going to get, and a coach can sometimes not actually know what they're going to deliver in a structured way. So it was really important to me to take that decade plus years of experience that I had and that knowledge and distill that down into a really structured program. I wanted my coaching to be something that felt really comfortable, that created a really nice space for people to be able to engage with me, that they felt really relaxed. But I also wanted them to be able to do that in a structured way. So they knew week to week what they were getting out of that process. So I designed a 12-week program to be able to take them through the things that I felt was most pivotal to building their personal brand. So that was the step that I took that I know is often some of the feedback that I receive from people that I work with as being the reason that they were so drawn towards the program, because they really appreciated the structure and understanding what it was that they were getting out of the program. Number three is to personally share your project with your network. So let people know that you want to get into this coaching space. That was something that I did. So when I was first even just considering coaching on personal branding, I was actually setting up meetings with people that I wanted to discuss this with. And these weren't necessarily people that I wanted to do any sort of coaching with. This was a mix of people that I thought would be able to give me some really valuable expertise or advice or experiences that they could share in this area. So I was speaking to people from all sorts of industries at all sorts of levels to get a bit of their feel about what they thought about personal branding, if it was something that they had ever considered, what did they think the potential challenges were in my idea, what did they think the opportunities were, what did they see as being potentially a concern, what were some of the misconceptions that they might have had that I could potentially address, what were some of the things that they could get really excited about. So I used that opportunity to essentially just soundboard what it was that I was working on, and I made sure that I spoke to people that I trusted to be able to get that feedback as well. The next thing I did as number 4 was I launched a pilot program. So before I took on any paid clients, I first focused on this pilot program that I had created. So I took the program that I had designed earlier and I personally went out to a few key people that I thought would give me the perfect mix of participants in the program. They were people at different levels and in different industries. So I didn't see a single cent from my pilot program, and that can be tricky for some people to show up to meeting after meeting after meeting feeling that there isn't any sort of financial reward. But for me, I personally absolutely loved my pilot program so much. I was just so passionate about it. I was so excited for every single meeting that I had. But I think it's also really important to remind yourself when you do want to charge for that initial pilot program is that the purpose of a pilot program is to make sure that you can understand if your framework actually works and to work out where the potential holes are, what is potentially not working in there that needs to be improved, what is actually working really well that you can keep as a part of that as well. That is the purpose of a pilot. It's to smooth out any of those potential issues and to find out what makes it also really valuable. So that is just something that I would recommend if you can make your pilot program feasible, is to do it for free and to make sure that you are using that as a learning opportunity, because in reality your pilot program is never going to be your best work because you just haven't had that experience yet in terms of finding out what works and what doesn't. So in a way, the people that you are engaging with as a part of your pilot program are also doing you a huge favor because they are helping you to develop your program even though it's not completely up to scratch yet. Number 5 is to personalize your program. So this was something that I really committed to from day one of my coaching business, and it just aligns really well with the idea that I'm in personal branding to make things as personal as possible. But whatever field you are in, I would recommend making the experience as personal as it can be. So for example, when I first engaged with anyone, even from my pilot program, I made sure that I was trying to personalize all of my communication. So instead of just sending people generic documents, I would make sure that all of those invitations or all of those communications, no matter what it was tailored to that individual. So it would mention their name specifically. And some of this would take more time. It would be much easier for me to just send things out completely generic and not take the time to personalize communications. But I think this is a really important aspect as well. And What I would also do is to ask yourself how you can continue to make the experience with your clients personal. So, outside of just your initial pitch and trying to secure your client to begin with, how are you continuing that level of personalization throughout your program? Because you have to remind yourself that when people commit to a purchase, a lot of that nervousness that they feel is post purchase. So they don't know if they necessarily made the right decision. They might feel a lot of dopamine when they're first engaging in that process and they're excited to purchase. But as soon as they've made that purchase, it becomes something that they start to not necessarily have the same level of excitement about. There is research to support that. You're more excited when you go to pay, for example, than after that transaction has actually gone through. So, how are you personalizing your experience post those early stages? I, for example, like to personalize the onboarding experience that my clients have. So, the things that they receive, for example, as a part of that process to create those moments of surprise and delight. So, they don't feel like you just got their sign up and then have completely forgotten about them, or they were just another number in that process. So, how are you continuing to make them feel like they're having a really special experience with you? As a part of my program, even from the pilot, I also had videos to support each topic. So, ask yourself how you are making that a more enriching experience for any of the people that you are coaching. Number 6 is to reach out to your existing network. And I mean this in a different way to what I mentioned earlier in terms of sharing your project with key targeted people. This is that next layer. So what I did was that I worked out who might have any sort of an interest in coaching programs, either for themselves or in a lot of cases more just related to people that they might know in their own network. So that was a factor too. And I let them know what I was doing and I provided them with a discount opportunity as well to be a part of that for them or someone that they knew. Some people politely congratulated me, some people completely ignored me, and other people wrote back saying, I was just talking about this to my boss. Other people wrote back saying that they were interested or that they knew people that were interested. So this could be an opportunity for you to just push your comfort zone a little bit more and to put out there what you are doing to people that you trust that are just in that next layer of your network. And you might have to be prepared that some of them just won't care about anything that you are doing. But the idea is to just be able to get a little bit of interest in a very small percentage of the amount of people that you go out to, because that is just what's going to help you to get started. And it could just be that it plants the seed for someone to work with you maybe later on because they know what you're doing, or to have you in mind when someone that they know actually does need something related to that. Number 7 is to create referral offers. So some of the first paid clients that I had came from my referrals from my pilot program. So despite the people that had worked with me in my pilot program having participated for free, they referred people who ended up being paid clients. And in some instances, that was, for example, people that were in executive positions that actually wanted other staff to be able to go through the program as well, and they were happy to pay for staff to do that. So you just never know, even when you do engage in free opportunities, where that could potentially lead as well. And number 8 is to SEO your content. So this is something that I've talked about a little bit more on this channel lately, and I just mentioned it in my recent episode about how I was able to secure my first speaking engagements. Because SEO, search engine optimization, is the way that people who aren't already in your existing network are able to find you. So, beyond the people in my network who were my first coaching clients and their referrals, this is how I was able to build my personal brand and to be discoverable to people that were complete strangers. Creating content is something that I would highly recommend for you as you continue to progress in your coaching and you're starting to create that online presence, because number one, it is going to showcase the depth of your expertise. It's going to create that portfolio of proof as to what you have to offer your clients. And two, it is going to be a key part of your search engine optimization strategy. So if you do want to learn more about SEO, then check out my previous episode on this topic. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.